Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest edition of Varsity Aces Live. My name is Darren Cooper. I'm the high school sports columnist on NorthJersey.com. And we're going to talk a little bit of wrestling this week because we are proud to have a distinguished guest tonight. Not only is he great, he was recently voted the greatest athlete all time in North Jersey on the male side. We're going to have a real vote. And that closes in just an hour between him and Heather Zurich on the girls' side. So I welcome Frank Cagnino to the show. Frank, how are you?
Pretty good. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I got my colleague, Sean Farrell, who has, I believe it's 3 Syracuse items in the backdrop today.
All 3, yeah. That's just for you, Tom Viscardi. Hope you're watching.
And the one and only, there's only one T in Scotland, and there's only one man like Scott Weaver. Scott, it is a pleasure having you on the show. You and I go way back. I'm glad to see you. How are you, Scott?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. I'm doing well. Thank you, Darren. Thanks for having me.
So let's start with Frank. Yes, we want to trumpet the fact that on NorthJersey.com, the voting ends at 8 o'clock tonight, which I believe is in just about an hour. As we have boiled down this bracket, some fool came up with a list of 64 males and female athletes from North Jersey history and decided to put a poll up and let the public vote and choose a all-time winner. So Frank Cagnino, you are our boys winner. So Frank, how does it feel to be voted the greatest athlete all time in North Jersey?
Feels good. Honestly, it was a little unexpected, but I'm happy to take the crown. And I'm thankful for all the votes I got. I kind of boosted it up a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, but yeah, I'm happy for everyone that voted me, and that's it.
I think that people forget, and I will speak for Frank for a second. I know Scott will, but when you stepped away, you had won 3 state titles and you had 164 career wins, which was then the state record. That's an awful lot of wins. So he's got pretty good credentials. And Scott, you knew Frank for a long time. What was it about him that kind of separated him in your eyes?
It's pretty easy to hit it on the head right there. For guys like Frankie and, like his last competitor, I think, was Mickey. And I was fortunate enough to coach Frank and guys like Donnie Pritzlaff, who I also coached. They're at an extremely higher level. They got the total package, and they show up every day looking to better themselves and to grind and to work hard and to be that guy. And it was simple on my end. All I had to do was just surround myself with great coaches, which I that makes a decent head coach when you surround yourself with great assistant coaches. And I had men wrestling with Frankie every day, and every once in a while you'd throw a good athlete like a Matt Fusco or Andrew Polidor with him, and that was the grouping, and I showed up every day with looking to service Frank and back in the day Donnie and other elite level guys that I was fortunate enough to coach, and it made me a better coach and maybe prepare myself better as a professional.
And Frank, you're now 10 years out of high school. You've had so many great memories in the high school wrestling scene. What do you remember most about your time as an athlete? Is there a win or a memory that really stands out for you?
I would say just kind of the grind. I kind of miss that. You get in a routine like every day, going to practice, getting ready for matches, like special routine, like only wearing a certain pair of socks. And, but yeah, it's like now I'm in the real world, so it's a little different, but it's kind of what I'm doing is I'm like using what I learned in like during the grind and like winning all these matches, this and that. And I'm kind of just like putting it into my daily life now.
And Frank, you only lost one time in the state tournament. That was as a sophomore. You had to wrestle back for third, and then you go on to win your last 84 matches. Was that a turning point for you? Did you use that as motivation? Because it seemed like that was the moment that it came together.
Right. Yeah. So, well, it was kind of like a change of scenery when I went to Queen of Peace. So I switched it up. And then I kind of I did get a little lackadaisical, didn't train as hard. And it was a wake up call, like I should be winning. There's no reason I should have lost that match, but it happens. And I rebounded. And yeah, that's kind of the same thing, similar situation happened in college. So, I just learn from my mistakes and get better.
Frank, I want to know what got you started wrestling. How'd you get started?
I don't know, just wrestling around with my dad, just that's kind of what wrestling is. Just like get your hands on somebody and see if they're good. You could kind of tell if someone's going to be a good wrestler. Body control, position, certain people have it. I mean, you can get better, but I guess he thought I was going to be good, and then I just stuck with it.
Scott, when did you first meet Frankie?
I've seen Frank at the Apex Wrestling Club. My two boys grew up a lot younger than Frankie, so they were the little guys in the back of the club, and all the fathers always stood out there, and I always prided myself on just being a dad with my two sons. So I kind of just sat back and watched him just develop and become that guy, and once he hit high school, everyone was and pretty much all of him of what he was accomplishing. And then the one day happened when I went over to Queen of Peace, and the fathers and all the clubs just started to coup together, and one of the other fathers reached out to me and introduced me to Mr. Cagnina and Frankie, and then it just so happened that he was at Queen of Peace after that.
And Coach, when he came to you, that was the first year that Queen of Peace had a wrestling team, and he became your first and only state champion there. How important was Frank to the development of the program?
It was crazy. It was total. I mean, he was surrounded by a bunch of good guys. That was arguably one of the better teams in the state of New Jersey, and I'm sure if they would have let us have a ranking, that would have showed it. The NJSIA didn't allow us to have a ranking that year because they said that they used the words as dream team. So it was like a dream team, and it really was. I mean, there was no reason or right to it. Just that all the fathers got together, and we offered a good level of coaching. And again, I surround myself with like 5 or 6 guys that are former college wrestlers and all Americans, and it just becomes a good fit. And at the end of the day, for your kid, I with my two sons, I feel the same way. It's all about the fit. So I guess the fathers, took it upon themselves to believe in what I was doing and what we were doing as a staff, and where we were going to develop their kids and get them in shape and coach them hard. And Frank was the leader of that, and he was a young guy. There was older guys on that team, and really good guys like Matt Fusco, who was a multiple-year starter at Rutgers, and other guys on that team that were outstanding, and Frankie was the guy, and everyone knew it,
I had to do some research before we started just to refresh my memory. You had 8 guys go to Atlantic City, and I wrote a story about Frank breaking his thumbs.
Yeah.
Frank, you remember that?
Yeah, well, the beginning of the season at Apex, I broke my thumb. I needed to get a little plate in it, and I thought I was gonna be out. I was like, oh no, the state record, it's no longer gonna be available. But I kind of sucked it up, got surgery, and then I remember I would just do stance and motion for the whole practice while I had a cast on.
Really?
And then the dressing room, yeah, just try to stay ready.
That's dedicated.
Like we actually had a soft cast that we would go and get permission out of the officials, and then I would have to put like a big pad over it. And how long did it take me to tape your thumb up every match that you wrestled, right?
Yep.
Probably longer than the match took.
What's that?
Probably.
Probably longer than the match took, Scott.
100% on that one, yeah.
And Frank, you came into a completely new program, as we touched on before, and your first year, you're one of the best teams in the county. I believe they were the runner-up at the county tournament. What was your experience like at Queen of Peace? What do you remember most about that place?
It was like, well, it was kind of different coming from an all boys school. You know, it was kind of the same style Catholic school. They really didn't know anything about wrestling. That's one thing I do remember. Like they were like, "What is this sport?" Because they never had it. So it was different. Like we would have our matches, and like they would try to get into it, but like they really didn't know what was going on. And but like as we got better as a team, they started to get more into it. And but yeah, we had a good team. I'm still in contact with a lot of the guys on the team, so it's good. And it was a very good experience.
Scott, why do I remember going out to a practice one time, like at Teaneck Swim Club or River Club or something? Where were you practicing? Where were you practicing?
No, I don't remember that one, Darren. I mean,
like
we tried to find different spots because they were supposed to have built us a. Remember, Frank? They were supposed to build us a state-of-the-art wrestling facility, and it got squashed after we all became present, you know, and so we just tried to find different facilities to train in, you know. So we were rolling mats out and trying to get the best workout we can, but you know, it was difficult. But I don't remember exactly what you're talking about, Darren. And I think, Frank, we practiced down there by the river the one year in Kearney at the Boys Club. And
that's water.
Yeah, that was it then. Yeah.
But you know, Coach, Sean and I were part of a big package last week on Patterson Catholic, and 10 years since Patterson Catholic closed, and what a void it kind of left. When a school like, you know, when you look back and Queen of Peace is now gone, Frank, you have no homecoming, you know, you have no school left anymore. I mean, does it, you know, is it emotional in a way? It's kind of sad. Is it kind of like, you know, it's a lost opportunity, and now that opportunity doesn't exist anymore?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I don't. It was kind of depressing, to be honest, but I mean, if you search, it's still going to be online. Like it's still there. They know that it existed, but yeah, it is depressing. Like they built a beautiful room, and that's no longer there, and just kind of takes away from it a little bit.
And Coach, Queen of Peace had 15 state medalists in 10 years. You know, what was that experience like for you to really see a program go from nothing to a superpower?
Well, you know what, Sean, it went from nothing to something twice, you know, and after Frank's first year, it seemed like they changed administration, changed direction, that we actually lost a lot of guys that transferred back out. And so then shortly after that, they closed out the program because I was in, you know, confrontational situation with them about why they weren't supporting. And then, you know, I ended up leaving, and that's the 4 years that I spent down at David Brearley High School. Then they redeveloped it and changed administration again. And, you know, at the end of the day, it was about the position that the school is. It's right up the road from my house, and an opportunity for my kids to go there and compete at a good program and you know, wrestle for myself and my assistants. And it just crashed twice. The second time around, that's when they actually did build the wrestling room, and it was a state-of-the-art wrestling room, like Frank said. You know, it was totally legit. And you know, then out of nowhere, they after they raised the money to survive the scares, it just called a closure at the last second. Messed up a lot of kids' direction and final year in high school. I know. I think we were returning 12 out of 14 weight classes that last year when they ended up closing the school, and you know, the 12 kids had to find different directions. So you know, some went back to public schools. A lot of went to, you know, a couple kids went to Bergen Catholic, which is where I sent my son, my older son, and some went to Don Bosco and then St. Joe's, and you know, it was just real difficult. And then, of course, I became, you know, just a parent, you know, which was, I was not ready for that, and kind of pretty bad.
You know, one of the things we wrote about in the Patterson Catholic series was how much the school still had an influence in the sports scene after it closed. I think the same could be said with your team. As you touched upon, you see a kid like Jacob Cardenas go to Bergen Catholic and win 2 state titles. Garrett Bean goes to St. Joe's and has success.
Yeah.
How much do you guys still see each other around the mat, talk about Queen of Peace? How much is that still on your mind? Because I'm sure you did run into a lot of those guys.
Yeah, I keep in contact with almost all of them. Frankie's group, they're older now. They're men. They're into professional lives, and I become friends with all of them. Even though I'm an old man, I become friends, and they work with my sons. Matt Fusco works with my younger son, and Frankie works with my older son at times, and they become friends of our family, become family. And the second falling of the school, those kids are all my son's age, so they're all around my house as well. They're friendly with my sons. Cardenas is here constantly with Enrique Sanchez and other guys off the team. So it's the relationships were built. The memories were great, although they could have been better if it would have just been left alone, right, Frank?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, Frank, what reminder, we're talking to Frank Cagnina, recently voted on NorthJersey.com as the greatest male athlete of all time and is now locked in the finals against his female counterpart, Heather Zurich from Pascack Valley. Voting closes at 8 o'clock tonight. Frank, you already voted, right? Did you already vote?
I did vote, but I've been kind of laying off telling people to vote because I'd rather let her win. That's a gentleman move, I think.
That's okay. When we had the girls on, when we had the Final Four, the girls on, they were talking to us before we went on the air about how they had voted for other people too. So don't worry about it.
No, the whole time I voted for myself, but I voted for myself. Yeah, I did vote, but I'm not telling other people this one.
Frank, I also know you're coaching now, right? You're coaching.
Yes.
You're coaching, and where? I knew where. And what's that like? What's that like for you?
Well, it is a little tough. It's a challenge because for someone that didn't lose a lot in high school, like it's really tough seeing my guys lose and trying to figure out why they're losing and how I'm gonna fix it. But so it is a challenge, and those are the kind of things I face. How am I gonna get them better and stuff like that.
Can you still wrestle well today? How did those practices go?
Those practices are good. Honestly, my body gets a little banged up. It takes a little harder to recover, but I come home and complain to my fiance a lot. I'm sore, this and that. But yeah, it's not. I can still go.
Hey, tell him, Scott. Old age catches up to everybody.
It does, but as you guys could imagine, he's right. He could still go, and I've watched him wrestle my son a couple times, and he could still go. If you want to believe that, just ask Dylan. He can confirm that for sure.
And Frank, you may have seen you got another accolade today. We're starting a series on the greatest wrestlers in North Jersey history. You were named one of the greatest lower weights we've ever had. Tomorrow we'll have the middle weights and then the upper weights after that. The interesting thing with you is you never lost to anyone from North Jersey. You had a few out-of-state losses, a few out-of-area losses. I'm curious, is there anyone in our area that gave you a tough time that you remember? What stands out about your competition here?
I'm trying to think. So my county finals, it was against DeMarco from St. Mary's. So he was a tough kid. He went to Rutgers, just strong guy. I'm trying to think county finals. He kind of he came hard at me, but really, not really. Off the top of my head, that kind of is what's coming to me. But around the area, yeah, not really a challenge.
Coach, we don't want to let you go without talking about the NJSIA's talking about new districts and new regions again and all that stuff. Well, you've seen it from every side of the angle. What's the right solution? What's the right solution for organizing the teams in this state in a fair and equitable and smart way?
You know what? I wonder sometimes what they're thinking. We got called. I don't know if you were there, Darren, but all the private school coaches, and I was at Queen of Peace at the time, got called up to Bergen Catholic to come up with a kind of a geographical scenario
Right.
on how to split up the regions to make it fair, because they called the private schools the superpowers, and
Right.
Queen of Peace wasn't one of them listed, but But as you could expect, from DePaul to Bosco to Bergen to the Joes, the Peters, and I think Seton Hall and I think Pope John. So those guys were to split up and to go different directions. So we spent 2 hours up at Bergen Catholic the one year, and before they did this, and it was said that the 6 power teams were going to go to different regions and keep everything the same geographically speaking. So the one that created the most travel was Del Barton was to go to the Shore Conference region. I guess it's 5. Is it 5 or 6 then? It was 6 then. So Region 6 was going to go to Del Barton. So Brian Stoll said, yeah, definitely, I'll make a weekend out of it. We'll go down and spend the whole weekend down there. So he was on board with it. And then, they said if we didn't come up with a real answer, that they were going to do it like they did it. Just cut lines straight across all the way down the state and let the chips fall where they fall. And, it was like wasted effort because that's what they did anyway. And I thought that the system that we came up with minimizing the private schools in each region was very equitable. And I thought that was the answer. Now they keep trying to tweak it, and it's taken away from the meaning of the word district and region because, first of all, you threw all the Hall of Fames and all the traditions out, and that was difficult to absorb as a longtime coach. And now you still under the new process they have,
with the power ratings and where and who goes where.
Yeah, there's still difficult. Why is Rutherford? Because now Peaburg is back in Region 3 with Lyndhurst and Del Barton, and now I think they're pushing to host the district, and now Rutherford, all the way over here by Giant Stadium, is going to have to travel all the way over there to Peaburg for a district. That means you have to leave at like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning. So I don't know. They need to find a little bit better system to develop the idea of the word district and the word region. To group the teams closer by geography.
Coach, isn't there some thought though in wrestling, which is the ultimate man versus man sport, and girl versus girl now?
Mm-hmm.
Does it really matter where they come from? We're going to be settled on the men anyway. The best kids end up in Atlantic City anyway.
They added the other qualifier of the region. That helped, with regions that were pretty stacked. Because at the end of the day, any public school could pop out with some hammer kids that take spots from maybe a private school kid. But at the end of the day, if they're good enough to qualify top 4, then they'll get down there. I mean,
Frank, did you ever pay any attention to that stuff? Were you following who was in your district and who was in your region back in the day? Scott's shaking his head. No, right?
I mean, like I kind of knew, but not really. I was kind of just trying to get through them, one match at a time. Really, don't look ahead. That's when bad things happen when you look ahead.
And Coach, one of the things we were talking about earlier was the number of weight classes. The National Federation for High School considered changing it from 14 to 13. Obviously, that would help break a tie because you could go to bouts 1. Do you have any feeling, should we continue to stick with 14, which is what the state ultimately did, or should we try to find another way to do it?
I don't know. I have mixed emotions about it. I think that PA has a good idea. We're doing the dual meets at 13 weight classes and then postseason with 14. That way it doesn't, short an athlete from being able to get into the postseason tournaments. But I get it. And the answer is small group 1s and group 2s don't have enough big guys to even fill the weight classes up top. So, to minimize a big guy weight class during the dual matches, it would probably be helpful, But I kind of like what PA did. To still allow in the open tournaments like the Beast and Escape the Rock and all these big tournaments, Dotsby and everything, put 14 weight classes, but the dual matches go to 13 because number one, like you said, it does break the quick tie, and it's I think a little bit better of a competition not so much on the big scale when you got like Bergen wrestling Del Barton, but when the smaller schools are wrestling each other, it could be helpful.
Right, quick, Coach. What's the fifth criteria in case of a tie?
I have no idea. I just go straight on, weight class by weight class. We're going after it, and if we fall short on weight classes, we're probably not going to win. Because in my lineup these days, we don't get much bonus points except for a couple kids in the weight class. So if we're looking to win, 8 to 9 to possibly win a match.
All right. I think that'll about wrap things up. Sean, you got anything else?
I think that's it, Darren. I think we covered it.
I think we have been joined by, I think they changed the name of this show to Frank Cagnina Drinking Coffee, right? Is that the name of the great?
It's Smile Man. It's from Jamaica.
We want to thank our friends, Mr. Frank Cagnina and Coach Scott Weaver, for joining us. Remember, we are conducting the poll to find the greatest all-time athlete on NorthJersey.com. Polls closed in about 34 minutes. So if you're watching this on delay, then you missed it. Frank Cagnina against the great Heather Zurich from Pascack Valley. So we encourage you to vote. I want to thank my friend and colleague, Sean Farrell, for joining us tonight. There really is only one Scott Weaver in North Jersey, and we're glad he's here. And my best to him and his family. And my best to Frank Cagnina for joining us. Frank was some competitor back in the day. That'll wrap things up here live. Let the players play and the coaches coach and the officials officiate. And let those varsity aces tell you what you need to know. Thank you so much.